Okay, welcome to the Strength and Sthenics Podcast. This is our first episode. It's going to be me. I'm Josh Hash. You may know me from Strength Side, along with Denis. You want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Denis. You might know me as Josh's coach from one or two Strength Side videos. I have a master's degree in pharmaceutical sciences and co-own an online coaching company, Sthenics, as well as an app development company, Trainlog. I've made my hobby into my job and have been coaching and educating athletes and coaches in the beautiful sport of calisthenics for the past 6 years.
Nice. Yeah. So we're super excited to do this podcast because we both have a love of calisthenics, obviously, but we want to kind of share and make it more accessible for all different types of people, whether you're a traditional going to the gym lifting person, whether you're a runner, and whether you're just doing activities like climbing and whatnot. Calisthenics can be such an awesome way to get stronger and also go through learning processes of learning new skills and just having more fun with your training in general. And that's why I've grown to love it. How about you?
Has been the same for me. I really just started with that directly. I was scared of weights and going to the gym. I was scared of hurting myself because I didn't know what to do. And my approach towards this sport was, and this is before it really became mainstream, at least in Europe, I saw people doing bodyweight exercises and getting strong with it. And I was like, oh, bodyweight sounds safer. I'll go with that. And I just started to train in my own room, just doing push-ups, doing pull-up, and slowly working up towards harder things like handstand push-ups and things like this. And the beautiful thing that I found, and the reason why I fell in love with the sport, was it feels like you can, a bit like a video game almost, you can achieve one thing after the other. So you work towards your first little goal and you get the achievement, and then like that opens new ways to new other goals. And I started from pure body weight. I didn't want to touch a weight. I was scared of them. I was scared of doing something wrong, to later on in my career going from a purely skill athlete and competing in skills to a rather, I would say, hybrid kind of training where I started using weights more and more.
So you're a calisthenics athlete, but you've squatted some big numbers before. You train legs. Somebody commented on our video that you had some nice glutes, so you're not the typical no leg calisthenics athlete. And I think that's important for this podcast, is we're going to be talking about how to combine training, right? And not just be a calisthenics bro, but be able to get the cool stuff from calisthenics and combine it with other training.
Exactly. I think the potential in this sport really is that you can, first of all, learn cool things and you can do awesome stuff with your body. And that's number one. You can do it everywhere. If you're on holidays, you need to bring and pack a pair of rings. You can do incredible workouts with a pair of rings. And with this podcast, we want to teach you how, so that no matter where you are, you can take those out and stay fit, do awesome stuff, and keep learning and progressing, actually. Like, you're on holidays doesn't mean that you need to stop the gym completely. You can keep going with just 30 minutes a few times a week. And yeah, the whole legs story as well. Honestly, for the first, I think, 8 years of my training, I actually just did the classical calisthenic stuff of doing weighted pistol squats, not particularly fun, and then switched to street lifting, which is the weighted side of calisthenics, where you do weighted muscle ups, weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, and actually squats. And it's just like a powerlifting competition, just with 4 lifts instead of 3. So you have to train the legs as well. Yeah.
Lovely. And yeah, I'll just touch on that part about being able to do it anywhere. I think I see from my audience on Strength Side, because our lives are so technology filled these days, right? We're working on computers, screens. And then if you're just always training in a gym under fluorescent lights, you got the TVs going on, it's like life can start to feel a little dull. Like you need to get outside, you need to get some fresh air, you need to get some sun. And that's such a powerful thing for calisthenics, is you can do all this training at your local park, or you can set up your training space at home in your backyard. And, nothing against gyms, because gyms will get you very strong and it is good to combine, but to be able to go and do some workouts outside, that's really what we're looking for,
And the sense of community that it builds as well.
Yeah. Talk about that for a second.
I've had the impression that the sport hasn't become as big in the US like it has in Europe the last years. That's something that absolutely needs to change.
That was one thing that was motivating us to do this a little bit, is because you were showing me a lot of the community in Europe, and I was like, man, the US, it's so spread out here. There are pockets of cool little calisthenics community, but it's much more rare. So we're bringing it to the US.
Yeah. That's the idea. In Europe, the sport really started to get big through social media, and it was the beginning of social media. Some very talented athletes started to actually organize meets, especially in Italy. A few times a year, you had these meets where all the athletes from Italy met at a park that you only knew from YouTube videos. And you had a whole training afternoon together, and everyone was having fun, showing off, especially in the first days. There was a park in Milan, Q8 it was called. You had endurance battles where people just did little circuits, like one pull up, one muscle up, one dip. And the second person went 2, 2, 2, and then 3, 3, 3 until you couldn't go anymore. Super fun. And it started to build these communities. The state started building more parks, and you started seeing the sport in TV. And this is what led to it becoming bigger. Plus, you have bigger events, things like the FIBO, where you really have competitions and things like that. But before the competitions existed, it was just people getting together in a park, training, having fun, challenging each other, which led the sport and the people to grow a lot and just get better much faster than in other countries. Like I live in Austria currently, where this evolution was way slower. Of course, you're not outside as much because the sun doesn't shine as much as in Italy, and that makes a difference. That is an awesome part of the sport as well.
So moving into kind of who this podcast is for, I'll share a little bit of my own background. I started dabbling with calisthenics probably 6 or 7 years ago, but my main focus at the time was kind of a handstand, a ring muscle up, and I started to really like the bodyweight approach to training, because I think just being able to control your body and do some cool moves with it is just so cool. But I find that with the calisthenics culture, it's almost viewed as a young person's sport. As I'm, getting into my later years, I'm about to hit 37, right? So I'm about to start using a cane, but I'm finding calisthenics is actually such an awesome way to keep challenging yourself as you get older, right? And it was inspiring to hear Denis when he was out here telling me about clients that he's had in their 40s, 50s, unlocking front levers, muscle ups, handstand push-ups. And I think that as we age, we need reasons to keep training, right? And good reasons to keep training are a nice goal that we see in the future, because sometimes just when we do the same thing day in and day out, it can start to get boring, and you kind of let that go sometimes. You let your health slide, or your strength slide at least. This podcast is for anybody in that same boat who, maybe they're not, maybe you are 18 years old, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're a little bit later in life and you've always wanted to do a muscle up, but you also don't want to let go of your running practice or your lifting practice. And this podcast will be perfect for you to just get a roadmap of how you can start doing some calisthenics, how you can get really strong and learn some cool skills while, managing other things in your life as well.
Absolutely. When you look on social media, you just see these crazy impressive skills done by these extremely lean little athletes, and you think, I'll never be able to achieve that. The thing is that people forget about social media. The posts that get millions of views because they're impressive, they are the top 0-something%.
Right.
And there's so many other people doing this sport that have a 9-to-5 job, that do something else in life, do other sports in life. They love the outdoors, they're out, they're hiking, have a normal job, have a family, have kids, but have a bar in their room with a few weights, and they're looking for a way to make more out of it than just doing the same old moving weight from A to B, which I'm not talking down, and we'll see in the course of the episodes that I love integrating that, and it's something I do with all my clients. Josh here has quite some curling to do as well.
That's right.
But at the same time, you learn something and you move your body in different ways, in different planes, multi-joint, and people just see better results. It has a lot of reasons, but one of the big reasons is you stick to it, you're motivated. And then you see 70-year-old ripped guys in the park doing more pull-ups than most people can do.
Yeah. So, okay, here's a good question for you, Denis. When you see someone like the top people in the world, strength-wise, a lot of them are training upper body calisthenics and they're using weights for the legs. Why is it that you can get so massively strong in your upper body with calisthenics and maybe not even need the barbell lifts, but it is smart to use weights for the lower body?
Has everything to do with the levers that you can apply to your upper body. Take the pull-up as an example, super simple. You can't do a pull-up, you start doing rows and you already get a good training effect. You start doing normal pull-ups. They get easy, you can do archer pull-ups. They get super easy, you start doing one-arm pull-ups, and there's quite a way in between. At that point, you're pulling your whole body weight with one arm, just as an example. So you can change the angle of your body to stay in rep ranges that are very hypertrophy focused and where you manage to get very close to failure. With the push-up, you can lean more, you can do handstand push-up with handstand push-ups, you can go deeper, you can go more forward. And of course, with the planche and the front lever, by extending your legs, you create an incredible lever for your lats, and they need to sustain your body weight for your front delts in the planche, and they just grow huge. And then of course you have stress on your biceps in a lengthened position. That's why gymnasts have huge biceps, for example. And one big reason is they have like these isometric holds where their biceps in a completely lengthened position, stressed a lot, and just grows a lot through that. With the lower body, you can do pistol squats, but they're still quite easy for most people to do after a certain point. You can put yourself on a few plates and go extra deep in Bulgarian split squats, but there's a limit to that. You can do natural sissy squats and you can do Nordic curls, which are actually great ways to overload your quads and your hamstrings because they use the same principle of changing the lever of your body, and you can get quite some good gains out of it, and you can do plyometrics like jumping or so. But still, if you look at the weight that people move with the upper body to grow, it's usually lower than what they need to move with their lower body to grow.
Okay, so let's get to some of the juicy stuff here. What are people going to learn with this podcast?
Our idea with this podcast is to really put down a roadmap for you, no matter if you're a runner, a lifter, no matter the age you have, no matter if you're already doing calisthenics, actually. We want to, first of all, really explain to you how to get into the sport. The first episode will actually be transitioning from lifting to calisthenics, or how to slowly integrate calisthenics into lifting, rather.
Step one, buy some elbow sleeves. No, I'm just kidding.
But buy a weighted belt.
Okay, there we go.
Buy some rings, actually. How to choose the priorities. There's so many skills out there. What is smart to focus on, depending where you're at now? How many skills can you actually train at once? We'll look at realistic expectations, things you can expect to achieve in a certain amount of time, things that you probably won't, and go into details about different skills, different basic exercises like pull-ups, dips, everything. And with time, really learn how to bring everything together and understand how to almost have a hybrid approach to training where you can learn your muscle ups, learn your front lever, still bench lots of weight, squat, and run twice a week, something like that. Like really be absolutely complete. We want to give you a roadmap. Once you're done with these episodes, you have a clear idea. You can write down a plan for yourself that is sustainable, that will lead you to your goals, and learn awesome skills in the meantime.
Yeah, nice. And just to get people a little bit more hyped, what are like the main skills that we want to talk about here?
We will start with the ones that you can approach first. So the handstand is a big one. The front lever is another big one. The muscle up and the handstand push-up. These are the 4 we're going to start with. Doesn't mean that we'll stop here. So we'll talk about one-arm pull-ups. We'll talk about the planche. And of course, if the interest is here, even fancy stuff like Hephaestus, Malteses, all other weird names that are out there. But for now, we'll focus on these.
Maybe even some of like the outlier skills, but human flag, things that are interesting to play with. But the thing I think with calisthenics is sometimes there's some confusion on the basics versus the skills, right? But really, I think any good athlete is going to be combining all of these, right? When it comes to the basics, let's talk a little bit about what the basics are, why it is important to have somewhat of a foundation in them, but why, it's hard to give exact numbers of how much you need to have before you start training a skill.
The thing with basics is when I started watching these videos 12 years ago, it was all about basics. Training was pull-up, push-ups, dips, and muscle-ups, and pistol squats, as well as back-to-wall handstand push-ups. So these 6 exercises used to be the base of this sport. Everyone back in the day told you needed to do this at least for 2 years, no shorter, no longer, before starting with skills. It's what I did as well. Of course, over the years and coaching hundreds of people, my opinion has changed. I wouldn't recommend anyone to spend 2 years only doing these things because you can do both things at the same time. But having a certain base is extremely important. Being able to do a few pull-ups, let's say 9 to 15, you don't need more than that. It becomes super specific towards just doing more reps at that point, is a good range to be able to move in. Can be less. You can start weighted pull-ups. Just so you know, usually if you can do 8 to 10 reps, you can probably do around 5 to 6 reps with 2.5 kg, which is around 5 pounds attached to a belt. So you can already start if the form doesn't fall off. It doesn't decrease when attaching the weight. For the push-ups, numbers can be a bit higher. It's easier to achieve higher numbers. So between 12, 15 plus push-ups is a good base to have. Being able to hang on a bar for 10 to 30 seconds is good because you'll do a lot of stuff where you hang. Calisthenics is maybe even a sport where you rarely have to specifically train hanging for a lot of people if you do it already a lot, simply because you hang all the time. And it just is almost automatically part of the sport. Dips, I don't like dips. We'll have an episode where we'll talk about dips in detail, and I'll make my points. Having a dip, which is like almost the squat of the upper body, having between 6 and 12 dips is a good base to start approaching other skills. You can approach certain skills earlier, and this doesn't mean that you'll throw yourself into a planche, but you'll do a plank where you start playing with your shoulder blades. Just to give you an idea of how you can go about it in the future. Of course, we'll talk about this more in other episodes.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main point here is that you don't need to have excessively high numbers in your basic movements to start, say, working on a muscle up, to start working on your handstand, right? But also, if you are at a point in your training where, let's say, you can only do 5 pull-ups, then you might want to spend some time building that up to 8 pull-ups, to 10 pull-ups before you put heavy focus into, say, a muscle up. That foundational strength is going to help you so much in achieving those bigger skills. But once again, like Denis said, you don't have to go off and do it for 2 years straight. There are people that I chat with sometimes who they love calisthenics and they want to train more calisthenics, but they don't have a huge interest in skills, at least not at the moment, but getting really good at the basics, it'll still make you massively strong, right? If you can do 10 pull-ups with a bit of weight attached to your body, your lats are going to grow. It's an awesome way to train, even if you don't want to do those higher skills.
Absolutely. So there's skills calisthenics, there's weighted calisthenics, and there's endurance calisthenics. If you look actually at the best physiques, they're very often weighted calisthenics, but even more in part, the endurance calisthenics people. Endurance competitions are like max number of pull-ups with 30 kg attached, for example. These are old competitions. They're very rare nowadays. But in Italy, they're still big and they have crazy circuits. Like you do hundreds of muscle ups, back-to-back pull-ups, dips. The people that are doing this are massive just because you do so much volume. Plus you attach some weight. So it's not pure. It's not like going for a run.
Yeah, researching for the video that we made together on YouTube, I came across one of these endurance competitions and I had never really watched one before. And, you know, they're doing so many muscle ups, so many pull-ups, so many bodyweight squats. And yeah, these guys' physiques were like, I was like, these are the best physiques I've seen in calisthenics. Super wide, like just shredded out abs and everything. I mean, it would be hard to not have a good physique doing those high numbers, right?
And you have to. So I think that's one great thing about this sport. To make another point for calisthenics is the physique you need to perform is a lean one. If you compare street lifting athletes, besides in the highest weight categories, but even there to often power lifters in higher weight categories, they're still completely ripped and lean. The reason is that the pull element is so important, the body weight element is so important that you can't just get massively fat and squat more. It's going to help you, but you'll lose in other parts. That is not the case in powerlifting, for example. You just get stronger by gaining weight.
I mean, wouldn't that be interesting if they just added like a weighted pull-up into powerlifting, and that would probably change people's physiques so much.
Depends how important it is, but yeah, it would.
I think we're kind of summed up what we want to do here with the podcast. Is there anything that you want to leave with people at the end of this first episode and getting ready for the next ones?
The message I want people to take with them is just because you're doing one thing now doesn't mean that you can take bits and pieces from somewhere else to make what you're doing better. The last year has built this craze. I feel like sports where you do more things are attracting people. So it's not just doing one thing and I am the gym bro. I am the calisthenics dude. I am the runner. Now you have like, I am the hybrid athlete, I guess. Even expanding that to you do some of this, some of that. You take bits and pieces that you enjoy and you can build an awesome physique. You can have fun with training. You can do it everywhere and just be all around healthier, fitter, stronger. We'll try to get you there with this podcast.
You do cycling. You're doing this like currently, like you're doing endurance-based stuff with getting super strong.
It's been a crazy journey.
We'll dig more into that in future episodes. And yeah, just to piggyback on what you're saying there, like my way into calisthenics was actually through Ido Portal many years ago. And Ido Portal's the master of the generalist, right? And that's something that has really stuck with me over the years is like, I don't want to be one thing. I want to be multidimensional. It's been cool for me because over the years I've been able to do some progress in calisthenics while, you know, doing some acrobatics training, while doing some martial arts training and just combining different things. I've dabbled in a lot, right, over the years. And that's been really fun because like something will get me excited for a couple of years and I'll like get obsessed with it and I'll watch all this content on it and I'll go train it a bunch and I have that experience, but I don't have to be attached to it, right? And when I started lifting, I was very attached to lifting. I was like, I'm this gym guy who lifts heavy barbells, and I eat my 30 grams of protein every 2 hours.
6 meals a day.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was such my identity. But then it was an injury that, it took me out of that identity, and I had to choose something else. And my life's been better since I let go of being one thing and being able to.
What injury was it?
I tore my meniscus. Yeah. And this is when, I think I just deadlifted 500 pounds for the first time, like a few weeks before I tore it, right? Maybe there's some correlation there.
Maybe.
But then I was just like, oh my God, like I can't lift these heavy weights anymore. Like, what do I do?
You could just skip leg day,
Exactly. Well, I decided to learn a handstand, and I was like, who cares about legs? I don't need these legs anymore, right? So that's been the journey. And then I don't think I formally said on this podcast that you're coaching me in calisthenics. You have been for the last half of year, and that's how we've developed our coach and student relationship, but also friendship. And we're just super stoked to keep expanding and spreading the calisthenics message.
Absolutely. Love it. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Absolutely. Have a good one.